Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Disability Matters. I'm Morgan Spicer, Self Advocate Coordinator with People First of West Virginia. Over the years, I've learned the importance of self advocacy and how much of an impact it makes to have your story out there. Disability Matters is designed to cover a wide range of topics that will inform you, inspire you, and encourage you to strengthen your advocacy journey. We'll do this by offering a variety of guests as well as interviews with advocates around the state. It's not just legislative advocacy, it's so much more. This month, I had a chance to speak to Sherri Mills, a member of the West Virginia Developmental Disability Council, and has a daughter with Prader-Willi Syndrome. If you don't know what that is, not to worry, Sherri will tell you all about it in this episode. So let's get to that interview now. So today I'm talking to Sherri Mills. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, I live in Jefferson County in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. We've lived here for over a decade. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I guess my identity is mostly parent of a child with Prader-Willi syndrome. Um, Before she came along, I had a career in interior architecture in the DC Metro, and life looked a lot different. Um, and I don't think that anybody ever, signs up for a disability and or wants their child to have a rare disease. But this is the life that we've been given, and we have adapted well. And certainly, anything that life throws at me, I'm gonna take it and do the best that I can with it. And so, I naturally needed to stop working for her care, and over the years haven't been able to go back to work just because of the amount of care and the amount of specialists that she sees and therapies, etc. But this past year I was able to go back to work, and through a new passion of mine, which is advocacy, both on the federal and the state level, and getting involved in as many things as I can to help her from that angle. I have started a career in education, and working as a family support coordinator for an education specialist who works specifically with individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome across the country.
Sounds like that's a really big job.
It can be, yes.
So you just mentioned your title. Can you explain your job a little for those that don't know what it is that you do exactly?
Yes. So, for specifically individuals who are in the public school system, but we do have some kiddos who are in private school, and they follow IEPs. They might call it something different. But we really support children who are coming into the public school system from after early intervention, from like pre-K all the way until their state allows them to go to school, which might be age 22. And so we've had a lot of kids that we have supported throughout the years. And new families kind of look like two things. They look like parents who are really just looking to educate themselves on what an IEP even is and what supports they can get, and just getting into the school system at the pre-K level and wanting to do the most that they can from the very beginning. Or we have individuals who come to us who are like, on fire, right? Like there's some kind of school situation and they need support right then and there. And sadly, having an advocate, I say advocate, we don't really call ourselves advocates really. But having somebody on your side who is advocating for you specifically for your disability, holds a lot of weight in a meeting. And I wished that parents like that school systems could trust parents, because there is no better person than a parent. They know their child more than anybody. And sadly, school systems just sometimes push parents aside and don't listen to them. And especially with a rare disease like Prader-Willi, a lot of my advocacy is around disabilities don't have a look. Prader-Willi doesn't have a look. And so and also Prader-Willi is so rare, and it is so unique and crazy. Like when you're looking at the symptoms, which I'll talk about, it's really hard for people to wrap their mind around, and to be like, oh, this parent's just asking for something that's crazy and we can't support them. And we come in and say, no, there's actually a scientific reason why they're acting like this. There is, research and all these things. This is Prader-Willi. And I think that when you have a rare disease, you walk this constant fine line that is like, you want your child to have the autonomy that they are an individual and that they are themselves first, but also they have a rare disease and you have to raise awareness around that in order to get the supports that they need because of that rare disease. So that's really where we come into play.
Perfect. So I understand that you are also a member of the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council.
Yes.
So can you explain a little bit how that came to happen?
Well, I'm going to admit it was selfish reasons. I have been struggling to get, or had been at the time, my daughter's going to be 8 in just a couple weeks. And after early intervention, I was trying to get her on the IDD waiver and just really, really struggling to get an approval. And ended up finding out that the system really works against disabilities like Prader-Willi syndrome, and that the IQ level, in order to pass, which I hate using the word pass because it's kind of a fail, the test, is an IQ score of 70. And individuals with Prader-Willi kind of teeter right around there. And we were really fighting with some of the evaluators, the psychiatrists who were doing the test, to kind of wave it in a certain way, to be like, oh, well, I saw she could do that. And I'm like, no, she can't do that. You're not understanding. Like, and so they kind of scored her a little higher. And anyways, we kept getting declined. And I just felt so defeated that I was like, I have to understand this better. I've got to get involved on the state level. I need to, just really make a difference here. Again, like I said in the beginning, like I was given this journey, and how can I help her? And this was kind of a way that I could help her on a side to educate myself. So like I said, it started for selfish reasons, to understand a system that I did not understand. And I will say, after being rejected 3 times for waiver, we were investigating an autism diagnosis at the same time. And with Prader-Willi, it's really hard to be like, is it Prader-Willi? Is it autism? They kind of have the same behaviors. But sadly, autism is the key that opened the door for us to get her into waiver. And part of my advocacy is that is inequitable. It's inequitable that a rare disease can't get you in, but something like autism can. But really, I mean, ever since being on the council, it has opened my eyes and educated me in ways that I never imagined. And I always say, I do the project doc with WVU med students to show them what it's like in a complex medical home. And I always say that the biggest way to gain empathy for the disability community is to spend time with us and put a face to a name. And I think being on the council has really done that for me. I have gained a lot more empathy, a lot more knowledge, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't on the council.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That's just, you're not the only individual that I've talked to from the council. I've interviewed Sean Allen, I've interviewed Shannon Blosser, several members, and it all ties to disability, and they want to do more for the community and help represent, the individual more
Mhm.
from a state standpoint as to what we can do to help you live a better life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I understand that you have a daughter with Prader-Willi syndrome. Could you tell us what this is for those that don't know what it is?
Yes. So kind of my cliff notes here, because it, like I said, it is a complex diagnosis. But the main thing is it is a chromosome abnormality on chromosome 15. There's 2 different types. So when you look at the biology of a chromosome, there's the maternal and the paternal side. And it is on the paternal side. If it was on maternal, it would have been Angelman syndrome. So we kind of fall on the same chromosome 15. There can be a deletion type, which my daughter has, and there can be a type where the maternal fills into that void called UPD. And so there's some research as to, are these behaviors, are these characteristics, is it deletion, is it UPD? When you have a very rare disease, research takes a long time. So Prader-Willi syndrome is roughly 1 in 15 to 20,000 individuals. And I like to compare that to Down syndrome because most people know Down syndrome, which is 1 in 750. So we are quite rare. There was a study done in 2020 that claimed that we had 1 in 37,000 individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome, because again, that first number I gave you is worldwide. And so our babies start off with this failure to thrive. They are, if you were to Google it, which I don't ask you to do, go to the Prader-Willi Association, pwsausa.org. There's this picture of this baby over like an arm, and it's just like floppy, just hanging there. Our babies have zero muscle tone. So the things that you need muscle tone for at birth are to cry, to a sucking reflex, to eat, the ability to breathe, all of the things that you need to survive. That's why it's failure to thrive. So our babies are hooked up to all life-saving equipment. And they spend a fair amount of time in the NICU. I should say that it is a spectrum disorder, so not every individual is the same. Some babies do go home and then need more supports later down the line. And sadly, a lot of individuals, especially those of color, get pushed aside and don't get a diagnosis until much later in life. But it takes time and a lot of therapies to get them caught up if they ever do get caught up. Some individuals with Prader-Willi, because of that low muscle tone, don't walk until age 3. My daughter has the biggest speech delay because you don't think about the face muscles that you need to build in order to create speech. And then there's other things along the way, like behavior, and their hypothalamus doesn't work the same, so they can't regulate body temperature, so they overheat in the sun, and they could maybe get hypothermia in the winter. There's executive functioning and short-term memory issues, and I mentioned the intellectual part of that. And then there's like things like skin picking and sensory issues, and I mean we run the gamut. But the big thing is hyperphagia, so that's food seeking. So our babies go from this failure to thrive to somewhere around age 8 to 10. It's like a switch flips, literally. And imagine the hungriest that you've ever felt every second of the day, no matter how hungry you are, no matter if you just ate. And because there's some anxiety issues, not even trusting somebody you love, like your parents, your mom and your dad, to provide that food. That's where some of the anxiety and the behavior issues come in. When individuals reach that, parents have to lock their refrigerator, their pantry, sometimes the trash can, anything that might be food seeking, food stealing. We've supported some individuals at my job where they've gone into a convenience store and stolen food, and they're like, oh well, they're a criminal. No, they're not a criminal. Like, this is a part of the disability that they're just trying to seek food, and they don't cognitively understand what they are doing. So those are some of the challenges of Prader-Willi. And like I said, it is a range. It ranges in symptom and severity. My daughter struggles a lot with daytime sleepiness and just waking up her body. And so yeah, you can imagine in a school setting how you can support an individual that's falling asleep, that can't process things, that maybe has some behavior issues because their body is not working, their body is working against them. I often say, like, it's like my daughter's like walking through the day in like a really thick cloud and she can't get through it. And then the food things, if you think about food is everywhere, right? Like, we celebrate with food. We comfort ourselves with food. There's a celebration, a birthday, a graduation, a funeral. Everything is centered around food. But for us, it looks different. We can't do that. In addition to the just constantly thinking about food, her metabolism is almost non-existent. So if I were to give her, for example, like 3 extra almonds, I'm going to notice weight goes up. Prader-Willi is the number one cause of childhood obesity in rare diseases. So we're really cautious of nutrition and what we give her. And again, educating the school setting that like we don't need treats for the celebration. We don't need this for a birthday. We don't need a popsicle party. We don't need, all of these things that we center her life around. Like, could we look at it a different way? And really part of our education, because we have to start at the basics to be like, imagine if this child had a peanut allergy. Wouldn't you remove peanuts everywhere? It's no different with like sugar and treats for our children. If they see it, they're going to perseverate on it. It's going to cause issues. And like you could create so many more behavior issues and other things if you didn't have food around. So I know I have jumped all around, and just basically to say that Prader-Willi is very complex, and there's different phases, and life looks a lot different for us.
Yeah, I was reading some of the resources that you sent to us recently, and yeah, I mean, this is why I love doing this show because not only are we educating advocates, I've been educated because I've heard of Prader-Willi, but I've never like really read into it and looked into it. So it's just like, wow, this is it. It's different because I never knew about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And
I'm
neither did we until we received our diagnosis. And so, I mean, part of it in the beginning is like we can't even process our emotions when we receive a diagnosis because we are just trying to, fight or flight, like educate ourselves. How can we hit the ground running? How can we, support her from the very beginning? And so, yeah, it's, I think it definitely takes that caregiver toll that a lot of people talk about. Because those things that will eventually catch up with you. So, yeah.
So how do you support your daughter with Prader-Willi? What are some things that you do to help support her?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is therapies. There is no cure for Prader-Willi syndrome. I mean, I know that there's CRISPR and things like that. There's some research coming that would be amazing, but it is also kind of scary. But um, at this moment, we can't replace a missing fraction of a gene. And so for us, a cure looks like therapies and medication. And so part of my advocacy is raising awareness with the FDA that um, rare diseases don't have decades to do a clinical trial to submit to the FDA. If the FDA rejects it because they don't understand Prader-Willi, we don't have the resources, we don't have the pool of people to start over again. We have a hard time filling a clinical trial to begin with. And so there's a lot of advocacy that I do. And also, like I said, we don't have a decade. The average life expectancy for an individual with Prader-Willi is very low, 20s, 30s. And so we need interventions from the very beginning. And so we do a lot of therapies, PT, OT, speech. We travel. Living in the state of West Virginia, we are one of the most rural states in the country. We also have the highest amount of individuals with disabilities. And so we could be traveling an hour to a therapy session that lasts a half an hour. We could be traveling to Morgantown when you live at the bottom of the state, or for us, we live in the Eastern Panhandle, we're traveling to DC and Northern Virginia. The amount of miles that we put on our vehicles to support our children is crazy, but we do it because we see the difference that therapies and interventions make. And like I said, I'm a big advocate for clinical trials and medication. I helped the first ever medication for hyperphagia get passed with the FDA last spring. But sadly, medications are not a one size fits all. So we need more medications, and also Not all medications are supported by insurance and Medicaid. And when you have a rare disease, those treatments cost a lot of money. I'm talking thousands of dollars a month. So that's also part of my advocacy is with Medicaid and insurance companies and things like that. So I'm really hitting it at all angles. Yeah.
And that's right, because the level of care you're giving, you're making sure that she's going to live the best life possible. And so you're going to do that any way that you can, like with the therapies, with the OT, with the speech. It's sometimes people just don't need help with one thing, they need help with a lot of things. So you just have to think about, how can we help them with this, transportation? How can we help them, speak with their doctor about a medication, something like that. But I mean, that's advocacy in itself, what you're doing. You're advocating for your daughter to have a better life. That's what it's
Hmm.
all about. That's what advocacy is all about.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So I know we've covered a lot today about Prader-Willi and everything, but is there anything else that you might have not mentioned that you'd like to add?
Um, I think just I would like to raise awareness for a second that rare disease is, not something that you can fix away with a behavior intervention or something. It is something that's always there, and I think when we're talking to the school setting, they're often ignorant in the fact that, like, oh, if we do this intervention, um, they're going to become a better kid. They're going to, I'm going to fix this Prader-Willi syndrome. And no, it's always there and it's lifelong. And I think I just want more people to recognize that, again, we talked about that fine line. An individual is both a person and they have a disability. So let's treat them with both.
Yes, I'd always tell people this is that you always look at the individual first and then the disability second. A person's not defined by, the disability they have. They're an individual first, and they matter. They really matter they matter. And, it's an advocacy is an everyday struggle. It's an
Yes.
everyday thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Sherri, thank you so much for joining me today. I think that a lot of our individuals are going to learn a lot more today about Prader-Willi than they did. They probably didn't know about it, which is great. Again, this is why we do it. So I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to us about it and teach us about what Prader-Willi is.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sherri, for joining me this month. If you want more information on Prader-Willi syndrome, please visit www.pwsausa.org. Sherri has a blog called Moon and Mountains you can visit by checking out her blog on Facebook. All the links will be available in the description to check out for yourself. Don't forget, if you want to be featured on an episode of Disability Matters or have a subject you would like discussed on a future episode, you can reach out to me by calling 304 422 3151 extension 129, or you can email me at morgan.spicer@thearcmov.org. I would love to have you on a future episode of Disability Matters. With that, we're out of time for this month. Join us next time for another episode of Disability Matters. We are advocating, educating, and celebrating the potential within you. See you next time.